let's look ahead to Goodison at the weekend. And Rob, I know you're in Cyprus right now, but when Man United get back, they go to Everton on Sunday. Do you expect Casemiro to start?
I mean, that is the question that every United fan is asking themselves at the moment. I think it was a surprise to many that he didn't start the Manchester derby, and obviously we all know what happened there. It's likely that he'll start against Nicosia in the Europa League on Thursday. But the big test of Casemiro's status in this squad is Everton on Sunday. Casemiro joined Man United to play in the Premier League. Ten Hag has called him the cement between the stones, and he almost talks about him like a missing piece of the puzzle. But so far, since he joined from Real Madrid, he just hasn't played in the Premier League at all. I think he's got 82 minutes across the last 6 weeks. Really, he wants to play in the big Premier League games. He wants to play regular first-team football, and so far, for whatever reason, whether it's his fitness or whether because Ten Hag doesn't fancy him so much, he hasn't. And given what happened against City in the derby, all eyes will be on that team sheet when it's announced at Everton at Goodison Park on Sunday to see if Casemiro is in it or not. Because if he can't get in the team for a Premier League game after a 6-3 defeat against City, you start to wonder, is he ever going to get in the team?
Ali, when we spoke over the summer talking about Erik Ten Hag and a kind of new bloom coming into Manchester United, you mentioned about United not replicating the mistakes they'd made in the past, the scattergun approach of signings. But how much has actually changed here? Casemiro has come in, super player, as Rob says, hasn't played much in the Premier League. Christian Eriksen's come in, super player. They're playing him in Casemiro's position as a holding midfielder here. Ronaldo, all the circus that goes with that, can't get a game right now. Is this just a continuation of what you had said, among many other people had said in the summer, that can't continue? Are we just seeing more of the same from United?
Mark, let's just go back and assume that whenever Manchester United are making a decision on a player, that the decision makers, whoever they may be, they get together in a room and they discuss, okay, what does this player potentially bring to Manchester United? So I can be part of the meeting, and I can just picture myself in the meeting thinking about Casemiro and what his role would be for Manchester United. And if I were part of that meeting, and there's a beautiful PowerPoint presentation taking place in this meeting, I would put together and say, if there was ever a match that we think Casemiro can make a difference for us in this club, it is against Manchester City, because he will do what we haven't had with consistency, with continuity, and that is protection for our back four, and a guy who has the personality and the presence to lead this team in protecting that back four and being an outlet that transitions this team forward. That would have been my pitch. That would have been my presentation, and that would have been the discussion in that meeting. And yet, Manchester City comes around. You're playing away from home. You need protection for the back four. The guy who has been potentially and arguably the best player in that position over the last few years, certainly in Champions League for Real Madrid, is not good enough to start for Manchester United. In that very moment, in that very scenario, it doesn't make sense. If this is a player that you thought was going to help you in that position, and then in your biggest game, you say, nah, thanks, but no thanks, I don't understand it.
Let's wrap this up, Rob, going back to Sunday. And I think bigger picture, United coming into the game against Manchester City, having won 4 games in the Premier League, looked solid at the back. Things were getting better. Things were looking good. I think, personally, City would have beaten anybody. I thought they were outstanding in that game. And I thought United in the second half, I know they won the second half 3-2. They could have chucked that at halftime at 4-0 down. So we don't know yet if that was just a blip or if it's part of a bigger problem. Assuming it was just a blip, United bounce back to form against Everton, get 3 points from Goodison on Sunday. Where does that leave them as far as the rest of the season is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, it's become one of those sort of vital games in a season that almost sort of this turning point now, that they had a disastrous start against Brighton and Brentford. They had a nice run, then beating Liverpool, beating Arsenal, and then they've had a massive step back against City. The next game then becomes massively important. Either, like you say, the City game is a blip, you go to Everton, a hard place to go, and you win, and you continue that sort of upward trajectory, or you lose again and it sets them back again. And all the same problems that you were discussing right at the start of the season are all back on the table. So, it's far too early in the season to start talking about sort of critical fixtures. But because of the timing of the game, that it's come straight after this City game, given what happened at the Etihad, it really is it has a feeling of a bigger game now. Because if United were to lose that game, it would people would start asking questions again about how much progress has actually been made. If they were to win and they were to, to carry on in a little bit of form, building a little bit more momentum, you would probably start to think that, things are getting better under Ten Hag and there has been progress. It really is that important that United get 3 points at Everton on Sunday.
Big week coming up for United in Cyprus in Europe, and then Everton in the Premier League at Goodison, and then the Cypriots at Old Trafford. But how much will Casemiro and perhaps Ronaldo feature?
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.